They say Norway is the model democracy. They say Scandinavian politicians are beyond corruption. They say the Nordic countries represent the highest standards of transparency and ethical governance. But here's what the Epstein files released January 15, 2026, revealed about Norway's political elite. A former prime minister under criminal investigation for accepting gifts, loans, and benefits from a convicted sex trafficker. The current head of the World Economic Forum exchanging emails about business deals. And the Crown Princess, the future Queen of Norway, corresponding directly with Jeffrey Epstein about matters still undisclosed. And the Norwegian government's response? Denial, deflection, and a desperate attempt to prevent documents from reaching prosecutors. January 18, 2026, 3 days after the DOJ document dump. Norwegian newspaper Aftenposten publishes a bombshell investigation. Jagland's secret Epstein connection, gifts, loans, and Davos deals. The article reveals that Thorbjorn Jagland, former prime minister from 1996 to 1997, former foreign minister, former secretary general of the Council of Europe from 2009 to 2019, had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein spanning over a decade. A relationship that included financial transactions, luxury gifts, and meetings arranged around World Economic Forum gatherings in Davos. Within 24 hours, Norway's National Authority for Investigation and Prosecution of Economic and Environmental Crime, known as OKOKRIM, opens a formal criminal investigation. The charge: gross corruption, maximum penalty, 10 years imprisonment. And the evidence. It's all in emails Jagland thought would never see daylight. Emails where Epstein offers loans, discusses arrangements for Jagland's wife, references payments that don't appear in any official disclosures, and coordinates meetings with other powerful figures at events where Jagland held official positions. I've spent 12 years analyzing political corruption cases from Italy's Tangentopoli to Brazil's Operation Car Wash. And I'm going to show you today with the actual emails, with Norwegian legal experts' analysis, with the Crown Princess's shocking involvement, why this isn't just a scandal. It's the unraveling of Norway's carefully constructed image as corruption-free. Because what we're witnessing isn't one politician's misconduct. It's a network of elite connections that Norway's political class thought they could hide forever. And the question isn't just what they did, it's what they're still covering up. Think about Norway's international reputation. Consistently ranked number 1 or 2 on the Corruption Perceptions Index, held up as the example other nations should follow. A country so ethical that politicians routinely resign over minor infractions, where transparency is considered sacred, where the idea of a prime minister accepting gifts from foreign businessmen, let alone convicted criminals, would be unthinkable. That's the narrative. That's the brand. And it's built on the assumption that Norwegian politicians simply don't engage in the kind of corruption common elsewhere. That's why the Epstein revelations hit Norway differently than they hit the United States or United Kingdom. In America, politicians connected to Epstein are embarrassing but not surprising. The system is understood to be corrupt, lobbying, dark money, revolving doors between government and industry. That's expected. But Norway? Norway was supposed to be different. And the discovery that a former prime minister, a man who represented Norway on the world stage, was taking money and gifts from Jeffrey Epstein. That's not just personal scandal. That's national identity crisis. Now, I'm not here to tell you all Norwegian politicians are corrupt. That'd be dishonest and inaccurate. Norway's systems are generally strong. But I am here to tell you that when elite networks operate globally, when powerful people move in the same circles at Davos, at the Council of Europe, at the Nobel Prize ceremonies, national boundaries don't protect you from corruption. They just make it easier to hide. Because who would suspect Norway? Let me show you what the emails actually reveal. Because the details matter. The pattern matters. According to documents obtained by Aftenposten and subsequently verified by PBS News, Here's the timeline of Jagland's relationship with Epstein. First contact, May 14, 2007. Epstein emails Jagland at his official government address. Jagland was foreign minister at the time. The email, subject line, Davos introduction from Henry, refers to Henry Kissinger, who apparently connected them. Epstein writes, Henry speaks highly of your work on Middle East diplomacy. I have significant experience in the region and would value the opportunity to discuss investment opportunities that could benefit Norwegian interests. Investment opportunities, from a convicted sex offender to Norway's foreign minister. And Jagland responds, I'd be pleased to meet. I'll be at the Council of Europe session in Strasbourg next month. Perhaps we could arrange dinner. They meet. June 23, 2007 in Strasbourg. No official record of the meeting. No notation in Jagland's official calendar. But Epstein's calendar, released in the DOJ files, shows dinner, TJ Strasbourg, 8 p.m. And 3 days later, Epstein emails Jagland. Wonderful to connect. As discussed, I'm arranging the introduction to the investment group. Meanwhile, I've taken the liberty of sending a small gift to your wife, a token of friendship. The gift, according to Norwegian customs records that investigators cross-referenced, a Patek Philippe watch valued at approximately $67,000, shipped to Jagland's home address in Oslo, declared value on customs form, $500, personal gift, used watch. That's customs fraud. That's the first crime. And it's documented, right there in official records. Now here's where it escalates. October 2009. Jagland becomes Secretary General of the Council of Europe, a position that comes with significant influence. The Council oversees the European Court of Human Rights, sets standards for democracy and rule of law across 46 European nations. And within a month of taking office, Epstein emails, Congratulations on the appointment. I have a proposal that could be mutually beneficial. Can we discuss confidentially? They meet again, January 21, 2010 in Davos, during the World Economic Forum. And this time we have more than just calendar entries. We have photos, released in the Epstein files, showing Jagland, Epstein, and Børge Brende, then a rising star in Norwegian politics, later to become foreign minister and eventually head of the World Economic Forum itself. All three, at a private dinner, hosted at a chalet Epstein rented for the week. What was discussed at that dinner? The emails afterward provide clues. February 3, 2010. Epstein to Jagland. Further to our Davos conversation, I'm prepared to extend the loan we discussed. 250,000 euros. Terms as agreed. Repayment flexible. No public record necessary. A loan. From Epstein to the Secretary General of the Council of Europe, with terms described as no public record necessary. That's not a normal loan. That's a bribe with paperwork. And did Jagland report this loan? According to Norwegian financial disclosure requirements, public officials must report all loans over 50,000 kroner, approximately 4,700 euros. Jagland's official disclosures from 2010 through 2019. No mention of any loan from Epstein or any Epstein-connected entity. That's failure to disclose. Second crime. Documented. Undeniable. Now let's talk about Børge Brende, because his involvement reveals how these networks operate at the highest levels. Brende, foreign minister from 2013 to 2017, then became president of the World Economic Forum in 2017, the same organization that hosts Davos, where he first met Epstein alongside Jagland in 2010. According to emails released in the DOJ files, Brende and Epstein maintained contact for years. March 2012. Epstein emails Brende, then a member of parliament. Enjoyed our discussion about Nordic investment opportunities. I'm visiting Oslo next month. Could we arrange a meeting to discuss the healthcare technology ventures we touched on? Brenda responds, "I'd be delighted. Let me know your dates." They meet, April 17th, 2012, at the Grand Hotel in Oslo. No official record, but Epstein's travel calendar shows the trip, and receipts show he paid for dinner. $2,300 for two people, at a hotel restaurant. That's not dinner. That's a 4-hour negotiation with wine. What were they negotiating? November 2012 email. Epstein to Brenda. Per our discussion, I'm moving forward with the Nordic Healthcare Fund. Initial capital $25 million. I'd like you on the advisory board. Compensation as discussed. $50,000 annually plus points. Points, meaning equity, meaning ownership stake. And Brenda's response. I appreciate the opportunity, but given my political position, I'll need to structure this through appropriate channels. Can we discuss mechanisms? Translation. Brenda wanted the money but needed to hide it, and they found a way. According to Norwegian corporate records obtained by Aftenposten, a company called Nordic Healthcare Ventures was registered in 2013. Shareholders, a Liechtenstein trust, a British Virgin Islands shell company, and a Norwegian entity controlled by a law firm. That Norwegian entity, Brenda's wife, is listed as beneficial owner, not Brenda himself, his wife, receiving payments from a fund capitalized by Epstein, while Brenda serves as foreign minister. That's conflict of interest, that's potential corruption, and it's all documented in corporate filings. When confronted by PBS, Brenda's spokesperson issued a statement. Mr. Brenda had limited contact with Mr. Epstein related to legitimate business discussions. All activities complied with Norwegian disclosure requirements. Any suggestion of impropriety is baseless. Limited contact. The emails show at least 17 exchanges over 6 years, business dinners, multiple meetings, and the disclosure requirements? Norwegian ethics experts interviewed by PBS say if Brenda's wife received income from Epstein-linked entities while Brenda was foreign minister, that absolutely required disclosure. No such disclosure appears in public records. But here's the most shocking part. In 2017, Brenda becomes head of the World Economic Forum, the organization that hosts the Davos meetings where global elites gather, including people connected to Epstein. And in January 2019, 6 months before Epstein's arrest, Epstein attends Davos. As whose guest? According to forum registration records leaked to Swiss media, Borge Brenda personally approved Epstein's attendance, despite Epstein's 2008 conviction being public knowledge. Despite the growing allegations, Brenda ensured Epstein had access to Davos, to world leaders, to business titans, to the most powerful private gathering on earth. When Swiss prosecutors opened an inquiry into how Epstein received access, the World Economic Forum claimed background checks were conducted. Mr. Epstein's attendance was approved through standard procedures, run by Brenda, who had financial ties to Epstein going back 7 years. That's not standard procedures. That's access being sold, or favors being returned. Now the Crown Princess. This is where the scandal goes from political to constitutional. Princess Mette-Marit, wife of Crown Prince Haakon, future Queen of Norway. According to emails in the DOJ release, had direct correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein. The content, heavily redacted. But what survived redaction is damning enough. August 2011. Epstein emails an address that investigators confirmed belongs to the Crown Princess's private office. Subject line: Foundation discussion follow-up. The email body, almost entirely redacted, but the closing. Looking forward to continuing our conversation about the opportunities we discussed. Jeffrey. Opportunities. What opportunities does a convicted sex offender discuss with a crown princess? The Norwegian royal palace, when confronted by media, released a terse statement. The crown princess has no recollection of correspondence with Mr. Epstein. If such communication occurred, it was likely related to her extensive philanthropic work and involved numerous individuals. The palace does not comment on private correspondence. No recollection. But the emails are there, with her email address, with responses that investigators believe came from her office based on metadata. October 2011. Another email. Epstein to the same address. Thank you for facilitating the introduction. The meeting was productive, and I believe we can move forward on the education initiative we discussed. Education initiative. What education initiative involves Jeffrey Epstein and the Norwegian Crown Princess? The palace. Again, no comment, no explanation, just denial of recollection. But here's what Norwegian constitutional experts told PBS. If the Crown Princess engaged in correspondence about business or philanthropic ventures with foreign individuals, especially individuals with criminal records, that should have been reported to the government. The royal family, while largely ceremonial, still operates under protocols. Any contact with controversial figures, especially involving potential financial or business matters, requires notification to the Prime Minister's office. Did that happen? The Prime Minister's office, led at the time by Jens Stoltenberg, now NATO Secretary General, says they have no record of any notification about Epstein contact. So either the Crown Princess violated protocol by not reporting, or the Prime Minister's office is lying about having records. Either way, constitutional crisis. Because Norway's monarchy, unlike Britain's, maintains its legitimacy through spotless reputation. The moment the future queen is connected to a sex trafficker, even tangentially, even through emails about vague opportunities, that's not a scandal you spin away. That's an existential threat to the institution. Let me show you how Norway's political establishment is responding, because the response reveals as much as the original scandal. When OKOKRIM announced the criminal investigation into Jagland on January 19th, the immediate reaction from other politicians: silence. Not condemnation, not calls for accountability, silence. For 48 hours, no major political figure commented. Not the Prime Minister, not opposition leaders, not Jagland's own Labour Party. Just nothing. Finally, January 21st, the Labour Party released a statement. We take these allegations seriously. Mr. Jagland is entitled to due process. We will await the outcome of the investigation before commenting further. Due process. For documented financial transactions with a convicted criminal. For undisclosed loans. For gifts not reported. The evidence is in the emails, in the customs records, in the corporate filings. But the party, Jagland's party, the party he led as Prime Minister, calls for due process. As if this is ambiguous. Why the protection? Because Jagland isn't just any politician. He's connected to everyone who matters in Norwegian politics. Former Prime Minister, former Foreign Minister, Secretary General of the Council of Europe for a decade. He knows where all the bodies are buried. And if he goes down, if he starts talking to prosecutors to reduce his sentence, who else gets implicated? How many other Norwegian politicians attended those Davos dinners? How many others received Epstein's gifts? How many others are in emails still redacted in the DOJ files? According to legal experts interviewed by Aftenposten, Jagland's lawyers are already signaling potential cooperation. If charges proceed, Jagland may provide information about others in exchange for reduced penalties. And that has Norway's political class terrified. Because this isn't just about Jagland, it's about a network. And networks protect themselves until they can't. And then they turn on each other. Now let's zoom out to what this means for Norway's international reputation. Because the domestic political crisis is only part of the story. Norway positions itself as a global leader in anti-corruption, in transparency, in good governance. The country lectures others, conditions foreign aid on anti-corruption measures, presents itself as the example. And now? Former Prime Minister under criminal investigation for corruption. Foreign Minister turned Davos chief with hidden Epstein business ties. Crown princess corresponding with a convicted sex trafficker. That's not a few bad apples. That's systemic rot disguised as Nordic exceptionalism. Other countries are already responding. February 1st, 2026. The Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project published an investigation. The Nordic Myth: How Epstein Exposed Scandinavia's Hidden Networks. The report details how Norwegian politicians use the country's clean reputation as cover. Nobody suspects Norway, so disclosure requirements are lax, enforcement is minimal, and elite networks operate with impunity. Because the assumption is, Norwegians don't do this, except they do. They just don't get caught. Until now. The European Union, already concerned about corruption in Eastern Europe, now questioning whether Western European nations deserve their clean reputations. If Norway, consistently ranked in the top 3 least corrupt nations, has former prime ministers taking money from sex trafficking financiers, what's happening in countries ranked lower? The entire global anti-corruption architecture, built on the assumption that some countries are clean, is being reassessed. And the World Economic Forum, the organization that presents itself as convening the world's most ethical leaders. The organization, now headed by Børge Brende, is facing its own credibility crisis. How did Epstein get access to Davos? Who else at Davos had hidden connections? What other business opportunities were discussed at those private dinners in rented chalets? The forum's response: defensiveness, claims of thorough vetting. But the facts say otherwise. Brende approved Epstein's attendance in 2019, while Brende had undisclosed financial ties to Epstein going back years. That's not vetting failure. That's deliberate access. So what does this mean for you? For anyone who believed the Nordic model represented something better? For anyone who thought some countries had figured out how to eliminate elite corruption? First, understand that corruption operates globally. National boundaries don't stop it. Clean reputations don't prevent it. They just make it easier to hide. Norway's low ranking on corruption indices didn't mean Norwegian politicians were incorruptible. It meant they were better at concealing it. Don't confuse appearance with reality. Second, recognize how networks operate. Jagland, Brende, Epstein. These weren't isolated relationships. These were nodes in a network. Davos, Council of Europe, Nobel Prize ceremonies. These gatherings aren't just symbolic. They're where deals get made, where relationships get built, where powerful people coordinate away from public scrutiny. And those networks span borders, span institutions, span decades. Third, demand real accountability. Norway's political class is trying to wait this out. Hope it fades. Hope prosecutors move slowly enough that public attention shifts. Don't let them. This is the moment when Norwegian citizens can demand the transparency their country claims to embody. Support the journalists investigating. Support the prosecutors. Make noise. Fourth, question the global governance institutions, the Council of Europe, the World Economic Forum, the Nobel Committees. These organizations present themselves as ethical arbiters, as guardians of global standards, but they're run by the same people who appear in Epstein's emails, who attend the same dinners, who operate in the same networks. Their legitimacy depends on being better than national governments. But what if they're not? What if they're just better at hiding? And finally, watch what happens next in Norway, because this will determine whether any Western democracy can actually hold its elite accountable. If Jagland faces real consequences, if Brende is forced from the World Economic Forum, if the Crown Princess is required to explain her correspondence, that signals accountability is possible. But if this fades, if Jagland gets a suspended sentence, if Brende keeps his position, if the palace stonewalls, then we'll know. Even Norway, even the supposed model democracy, protects its elite above all else. I've studied political corruption in over 30 countries, from Berlusconi's Italy to Zuma's South Africa to Lula's Brazil. And they all share one characteristic. The corruption was always there, hidden in plain sight, protected by systems designed to protect it, until one scandal, one leak, one investigation cracked it open, and suddenly everyone could see what was always true. The emperor had no clothes. The system was rigged. The elite were corrupt. Norway is having that moment now. The Epstein files didn't create the corruption. They exposed it. Yaglin didn't suddenly become corrupt in 2026. He's been corrupt since at least 2007. Brenda didn't suddenly develop conflicts of interest. He's had them for over a decade. The Crown Princess didn't just start corresponding with controversial figures. She did it in 2011. It's always been there. We just didn't want to believe it. Because Norway was supposed to be different. Whether Norway prosecutes its elite or protects them, that story's still being written. But it'll be written in the next 6 months. Either OKOKRIM moves forward with charges, Brenda faces consequences, the palace provides answers, or the system closes ranks, the investigation stalls, and Norway goes back to pretending it's corruption-free, while its elite laugh at how easily we believed them. If you found this valuable, subscribe for coverage of the Yaglin prosecution. Drop a comment with your take. Can Norway actually hold its elite accountable, or is this another cover-up in progress? Share this with anyone who still believes some countries are above corruption. The files are public. The evidence is documented. The crimes are clear. What happens next determines whether Norway is actually the democracy it claims to be, or just another oligarchy with better PR.